They thought they had me cornered, but I'd been planning for this day for months. My name is Mark Rios. I'm 42 years old. I live in Evanston, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. For 7 years, I gave everything to the company. Early mornings, skipped weekends, late nights writing performance reports after putting my kids to bed. And now here I was, in a glass conference room, with HR and my new department head, being told I was out. Darlene from HR slid a stack of papers across the table like she was offering me a lunch menu. Mark, we have concerns about some discrepancies in your recent client reports. Across from her, Vance leaned forward in his expensive suit with that fake, "I'm really concerned about you" expression he'd probably practiced in the mirror. "This isn't personal," he said, "but there are standards we have to uphold." I looked down at the top sheet. They were accusing me of falsifying performance data. Falsifying. "Effective immediately," Darlene went on. "Your employment will be terminated. In return for your cooperation, we're offering you 2 weeks severance." She pushed a pen toward me. "If you sign today." 2 weeks, after 7 years. Vance kept that calm smirk on his face. "Of course, if you'd prefer to dispute it, the review process can get complicated." I sat back in my chair. "Complicated," I repeated, like I was trying out the word for the first time. They thought I was going to panic, maybe argue, maybe plead. Instead, I smiled, slow and calm. "You know," I said, reaching into my blazer pocket, "I've actually got something interesting to show you." Vance's smile twitched, just a bit. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen a few times. "You know how the system automatically tracks report edits?" I said casually. "And how BCCs get stored when you email out final versions?" Darlene straightened a little in her seat. "Mark, for the last year," I said, not raising my voice, just speaking clear and even, "I've been blind copying every finalized client report to my personal email." Vance shifted. "That's a violation of our data." "No," I cut in, "it's not. I checked with compliance 6 months ago. Personal copies of your own performance logs, as long as they're not client confidential, are allowed. I've got the email thread if you want to see it." I tapped my screen one more time and turned it toward them. "What you'll see here," I said, "is a clean trail of every report I submitted, and the versions that ended up in the system, the versions with my name on them, the ones that someone else altered." Darlene stared at the screen. Vance stayed quiet, but his face turned a shade paler. "I've also got system logs," I continued. "Timestamps showing your login credentials, accessing my files. Every report you touched, every time you adjusted my client data by 15%, which, coincidentally, is the same margin by which Connor Blevins' performance magically increased." "Mark," Darlene started again, "I've already sent all of this to legal and the ethics office," I said, standing, "with a summary of what I believe to be deliberate performance manipulation tied to internal promotions." The silence that followed wasn't long, maybe 2 seconds, but it was enough. Darlene reached for her phone, and I knew the ambush had just turned into a crisis. The silence in the room was thick. You could hear the faint click of the ceiling fan above us, the distant hum of a printer outside the glass walls. Darlene and Vance just stared at my phone, unsure whether to be confused or panicked. I kept my tone calm. "I've highlighted the exact differences here," I said, swiping to a color-coded spreadsheet I'd built over the last 6 months. Every report I submitted, logged, time-stamped, and blind copied to my private archive. And then here, I tapped the next tab. "Here's the version that ended up in the official system under my name." Darlene leaned forward. "These look nearly identical." "Until you actually read them," I said. "My conversion rates dropped by exactly 15% on every major account. Not 11, not 17, 15, across the board." I pointed to the next row. "Meanwhile, Connor Blevins, you know, Vance's weekly golf buddy, his numbers went up by that same amount." Vance scoffed. "You're seriously implying I'm not implying," I cut in. "I'm proving." I scrolled to the audit logs. "Every change to those files was made under your login, Vance. I've got timestamps, IP addresses, even session lengths. You logged in after hours. You accessed my folder. You edited the reports. I can show you every move." Darlene's mouth opened, then closed again. Mark, this is a violation of... It's not, I said, cutting her off before she got too far. Personal copies of performance logs are permitted, provided there's no proprietary client data. That's directly from compliance. You want the email trail? I have it. Want the attachments? Forwarded to my attorney already. That one landed. She sat back, her eyes darting toward the glass door. Also, I added, ethics has a copy, and legal, as of this morning. That's when the door opened. Arthur from legal stepped in without knocking, followed by Marissa from ethics. Both had folders in hand. Darlene stood up immediately, trying to regain control of the room. Arthur, we weren't expecting... We were, Arthur said, his voice flat. I got Mark's documents about an hour ago. Marissa and I felt it warranted immediate review. Vance looked like someone had just pulled his chair out from under him. We've verified a significant number of discrepancies, Marissa said, flipping through the pages in her folder, all tied to Mark's reports, all altered using your credentials, Vance. This is serious. Vance shot up from his seat. This is a setup. He's twisting this. No one else's credentials were used, Arthur replied coolly. And the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Outside the room, more people started to gather. I saw two assistants whispering to each other. Someone from compliance hovered near the copier. The vibe had changed. This wasn't a termination anymore. It was an investigation. And I had lit the fuse. I folded my hands and looked directly at Vance. You wanted a quiet exit for me? This is going to be anything but. Arthur laid the folder flat on the table, fingers tapping once before opening it. We've reviewed the documents Mark submitted, he said, glancing around the room. They're thorough, too thorough to ignore. I stayed seated, calm and collected. If anything, I felt lighter now than I had in months. The anger I'd carried, the late nights, the missed baseball games, the invisible ceiling I kept hitting, all of it was laid bare on the table in front of us. I'd like to walk you through a few more things, I said, reaching into my messenger bag and pulling out a hard copy binder. I set it down next to Arthur's file. This one outlines every major performance report I submitted in the last 12 months. This one, I opened the next tab, shows how my name was removed from 6 project credits and replaced with Connor's, or one of the other guys Vance pushed forward. I flipped to a section marked Promotions. 4 of them were promoted in the last 18 months. I wasn't. Neither was Tanya Kim or Raj Pillai, both top performers. Arthur's brows furrowed as he read. Marissa leaned in, reading faster. Now, I said, looking toward the glass wall behind them, if you want to see something really interesting, I tapped my tablet and slid it across to Darlene. This is a breakdown of the performance bonus pool over the past 2 years. I was underpaid by $38,000 because of the falsified numbers. That's not just unethical, that's wage theft. She didn't even look up. Her face had gone stiff and pale. Then Arthur's phone buzzed. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and answered. Yes, sir? Yes, we're in the room now. A pause. Yes. I'll put you on speaker. He tapped the screen and set the phone down. This is Ben Harding, Regional VP, came the voiceover speaker. Mark, I've reviewed the initial documents you submitted. I want to start by saying, I'm sorry. You deserve better. Everyone froze. Effective immediately, Harding continued. There will be a full internal investigation into these promotion discrepancies. Arthur and Marissa will lead it. Vance is suspended pending review. Darlene, HR's involvement will be assessed as well. Darlene blinked rapidly but said nothing. Vance leaned back, arms crossed like he was daring someone to say another word. I also want legal to review Mark's bonus calculations, Harding added. And we'll be speaking to Connor Blevins about his role in all this. The call ended. I stood and picked up my tablet. I'll forward you all supplementary documentation, Arthur. And I have no plans to leave quietly. You want to fix this company? You're going to start with this room. Vance and Darlene stayed seated. But they knew. I own the narrative now. Monday morning, I showed up to the office expecting frostbite, a cold shoulder from anyone who still had Vance's scent on their lapel. Instead, the front desk security nodded at me like nothing happened. Maybe they hadn't heard, or maybe they had, and knew better than to pick a side yet. I didn't make it to my desk. Before I could log in, an assistant from the executive floor approached. Mr. Rios, Lorraine Templeton would like to see you. Right now. Lorraine Templeton, CEO. I followed her silently up to the top floor. My stomach churned, not from nerves, I had already fought my war, but from uncertainty. I'd prepped for retaliation, legal threats, HR red tape, maybe even a soft settlement and a forced exit. I wasn't prepared for what came next. Lorraine's office was spotless, the kind of space that smelled like restraint and oak furniture polish. She stood when I entered. "Mark," she said, "thank you for coming up." She motioned for me to sit. Then she got right to it. "I reviewed everything this weekend, all the documents, the logs, the email you sent to ethics. It's compelling and damning." I nodded once. I didn't want it to come to this. "That's what makes it credible," she said, folding her hands. "You weren't trying to make noise. You were trying to survive." She leaned back in her chair. "As of this morning, Vance has been terminated. Darlene is suspended pending a full audit of HR's handling of performance records. Connor Blevins' promotion is under review, and we've frozen all performance-based bonuses pending recalculation." I sat back. The words landed like little thuds in my chest. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just exhaled. "Thank you," I said quietly. She wasn't done. "We owe you back pay. Legal's crunching the numbers, but preliminary estimates put your bonus deficit at just under 40,000. I nodded again, still listening, still waiting for the catch. "I also want to offer you something else," she said. "A director-level position, reporting directly to me. You'd oversee the rebuilding of our performance management systems, audits, evaluations, promotion tracking, all of it." That caught me off guard. I blinked. "You want me to lead the fix?" Lorraine nodded. "We don't need a PR patch, we need a rebuild. And I don't want someone who will play politics. I want someone who's been burned by the system and knows exactly where the cracks are." I stared at her for a second, weighing everything. The risk, the exposure, the pressure. "You're not worried this will stir things up?" I asked. "That giving me power sends the wrong message?" She raised an eyebrow. "Mark, the message I want to send is this. You don't punish the truth, you promote it." I looked down at my hands. For 7 years, those hands typed reports no one read, shook hands with execs who never remembered my name, brought coffee to meetings where I barely got a word in. Now she was handing me the blueprint. I met her eyes. "Let's rebuild it right," she nodded. "Starting today." I spent the first 2 weeks in my new office buried in performance data. Actual spreadsheets, system logs, archived email chains, no assistants, no executive briefings. Just me, a black coffee, and the ugly truth. And it was everywhere. 6 more employees had been undercut. 6, all top-tier performers. 2 had quietly left last year after being passed over. 1 had taken a lateral move out of sheer frustration. And the remaining 3, still here, still grinding, still watching guys like Connor get handshakes and bonuses they never saw coming. Connor resigned before his review. Even started, word was he was jumping ship to a rival firm. No official reason given. But I wasn't surprised. Guys like him don't like spotlights unless they're holding the remote. I didn't chase him. Let him run. We got to work. I brought in Tanya Kim, one of the employees who'd been overlooked, to help build the new system. A changelog-driven tool that tracked every performance adjustment, every metric entry, every time someone touched someone else's numbers. We called it Clear Frame. No more hidden edits. No more backroom manipulation. You couldn't fudge numbers without leaving footprints now. Tanya took to it like she'd been waiting her whole career for this. "It's the first time I've felt seen," she told me one afternoon as we finalized our internal rollout plan. "You have no idea what that means." Actually, I did. But the pushback came fast. Noah Daniels, one of the senior traders and a longtime office darling, wasn't subtle. "We're not running a surveillance state, Mark," he told me during a team meeting. "You think this is about accountability, but it's just micromanagement dressed up with buzzwords." I kept my voice calm. "It's transparency, not surveillance. If you're changing performance data, we should all know about it." He snorted. "That's the thing. Most of us don't need babysitting." The room went quiet. Not one person backed him up. But the tension was clear. For every Tanya, grateful, motivated, determined to build something better, there were 3 like Noah who had thrived under the old rules, the unspoken ones. The rules that said, if you played golf with the right manager, you got promoted. If you didn't, you got overlooked, maybe rewritten entirely. They weren't going to go quietly. I knew that now, but I didn't care, because when I walked past Tanya's desk later that day, she was smiling. And that's when I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rewriting the rules, not just for me, but for everyone who never even got a fair look at the scoreboard. 2 months into the rebuild, the Jenkins pitch was everything. Jenkins International was a legacy client. Big account, deep pockets, slow to trust. If we landed their new sustainability portfolio, it would prove the reforms weren't just window dressing. They were working. The meeting was set for Thursday morning. I'd spent 3 weeks prepping every detail: market analysis, performance modeling, ESG integration. The kind of deck that told the truth and still looked good doing it. Wednesday night, I stayed late, polishing the last few slides. Thursday morning, everything was gone. I walked into the conference room at 7:40 a.m., expecting the usual pre-meeting jitters. Instead, I opened the shared folder on the screen and saw a different version of the deck, one I hadn't made. The numbers were off, the formatting was broken. 2 slides were completely blank. My name was still listed as the author. At first, I thought I'd clicked the wrong file. Then I checked the activity log. Noah Daniels' credentials had accessed the folder at 2:12 a.m. My pulse spiked. Jenkins was arriving at 9. I flagged it. I flagged legal. Then I made a call I never thought I'd have to make. I walked down to Lorraine Templeton's office and knocked. She looked up from her monitor. "Tell me this is a joke." "No joke," I said. "Someone tried to blow the pitch." We traced the changes to Noah. She didn't hesitate. She stood, grabbed her phone, and said, "Get legal. Get it. Meet me in the conference room in 5. At 8:02 a.m., Noah walked in, half smiling, probably thinking this was a closed-door slap on the wrist. By 8:10, he was being questioned by Lorraine, Arthur from legal, and 2 members of the security team. I kept quiet while the audit trail spoke for itself. When IT pulled up the logs showing his login, his device ID, and a remote save at 2:12 a.m., he stopped talking. Lorraine's voice was steel. "You used your credentials to sabotage a critical client pitch. You're done here." She turned to security. "Escort him out." Noah didn't say a word, just stood up and walked out like the walls were closing in. I sat down and opened my laptop. No time to celebrate. I rebuilt the deck from scratch, pulled backups from my private archive, updated the numbers manually, and restructured the pitch in just under 90 minutes. At 9:01, the Jenkins team walked in. At 10:46, they shook my hand and said, "Let's move forward." Afterward, Lorraine called me into her office. "You turned a disaster into a win," she said. "But this isn't over." She handed me a folder. Inside were emails, rumors being spread to our competitors, whispers about overreach, about spying on employees, about unstable leadership. "Noah's not acting alone," she said. "His people are still out there, and they're not staying inside our walls." I nodded slowly. "They're trying to break us from the outside now." She closed the folder. "You're not just fighting corruption anymore, Mark. You're fighting survival." And I knew then the real war had just begun. By the end of the quarter, 3 long-standing clients had pulled their contracts. Their official reason was misalignment of vision, but we knew the truth. They didn't like the new transparency policies. They didn't like the reform, and they definitely didn't like the fact that a former mid-level analyst was now sitting at the executive table calling out decades of unchecked favoritism. 2 board members resigned not long after. One of them, Mitchell Randall, had been on first-name terms with Vance and had openly called our ClearFrame system a ticking PR bomb. When Lorraine stood by me and refused to roll anything back, he stepped down, claimed it was for health reasons. No one believed that. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I'd gone too far, too fast. Maybe it would have been smarter to dismantle things slowly. A few updates here, a quiet shuffle there, not scorched earth. I'd walk into meetings with senior staff and feel the tension hanging in the air, like everyone was waiting for the next resignation or the next blow-up. I started questioning everything. Did I win a battle but sabotage the company in the process? Then Imani James, a rising star from our diversity council, showed up at my door. "Got a minute?" she asked, stepping in with a tablet in hand. She flipped it around. "A client growth report, up 20% over the last quarter. These are all new contracts," she said, tapping through the data. "Companies that reached out to us because they saw what we're doing. They trust us now, because we're not hiding behind the old guard anymore." I blinked. 20%? 20%, she repeated, smiling. "And check this out." She flipped again. "Our employee retention is the best it's been in 5 years. And diversity numbers, highest since tracking began." I leaned back, letting it sink in. "So, all this chaos, it's working?" "It's not chaos," she said. "It's growth pains. You're rebuilding something that was rotten at the foundation. That doesn't happen quietly." For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. I went home that night and told my kids we were ordering pizza. No laptop, no emails, just me and them. For once, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. But the next morning, I opened my inbox and saw the subject line: Notice of Legal Action. V. Callahan v. Mark Rios, corporate defendant. 9 months after being fired, Vance was back. He was suing both me and the company for $3.5 million, claiming wrongful termination, reputational damage, and, laughably, emotional distress. I read the email twice, then again. So, this was it. Just when the ground started to feel steady again, he'd come back swinging. But I wasn't the same man who walked into that ambush 10 months ago, and I had no plans to back down. Vance's lawsuit wasn't just a cheap jab. It was a full-on war declaration. The claim, wrongful termination, reputational damage, defamation, emotional distress. He wanted $3.5 million from the company, and from me personally. His lawyers accused me of fabricating evidence, manipulating system logs, and running a personal vendetta. According to them, I orchestrated a witch hunt to get Vance removed and elevate my own career. The irony? I didn't even want his job. The deposition was held in a neutral office tower downtown. Beige carpets, too much glass, too much cold air conditioning for a place packed with people in suits trying to play God with other people's lives. I sat across from Vance for the first time in nearly a year. He looked smaller, not in stature, but in spirit. No suit jacket, no smirk, just tired skin and shallow confidence. His lawyers went first. I let them talk. Accusation after accusation. Half of it made up, the other half so twisted it barely resembled reality. They kept referencing intent, kept pushing the idea that I'd been waiting to take him down. Finally, my attorney gave me the nod. "I'd like to make a statement," I said. The room went quiet. I looked straight at Vance. "You want to know why I document everything?" He looked away. I turned to the panel. My mother was a public school teacher, 27 years, one of the best in her district, until a new principal came in and rewrote her evaluations, claimed she wasn't meeting standards, replaced her with someone half her age. I paused. She didn't have proof. No emails, no logs, just a gut feeling and a pink slip. I sat back. I watched her cry for months. I promised myself that would never happen to me. So I documented everything, not because I had a plan, but because I had a memory, a reason. Even Vance looked shaken. No one said a word for a full 10 seconds. Even the court reporter paused her typing. 2 weeks later, his case was dropped. No settlement, no apology, just a silent withdrawal and a notice of dismissal, with prejudice. He disappeared from the industry after that. I heard whispers. Consulting gigs fell through. Recruiters stopped calling. I didn't cheer, I didn't gloat, but I didn't feel bad either. A few days later, Lorraine called me into her office. Her tone was different this time, quieter, more personal. "I want you on the board," she said, "head of the new Ethics and Accountability Committee. You've earned it." I was stunned. "You sure the others won't revolt?" "They'll adjust," she said, "because people like you don't just fix things, you protect them." That night, I walked out of the building knowing one thing for sure. This wasn't just about cleaning house anymore. It was about making sure no one else ever had to go through what I did, and that they wouldn't have to do it alone. Sitting in the boardroom that Friday morning, I pitched an idea that made half the table go stiff. "I think we should make our accountability metrics public." Silence. You could hear someone's watch ticking 3 seats away. I cleared my throat and kept going. Every system change, every correction log, every promotion decision, and the data behind it, published quarterly, full transparency. A few board members looked at each other like I'd just dropped a live grenade. The head of client relations muttered, "That's radical." "Exactly," I said. "But clients trust us now because we're doing what no one else will. Let's make it official." Lorraine nodded slowly, arms folded. "Let's open it to a vote." The room was split. There was arguing. One guy said it was a dangerous precedent. Another claimed it would make hiring harder. But when the final count came in, the motion passed. Barely. We got to work immediately. Within 8 weeks, our first accountability report went live. It included internal audit findings, real-time diversity data, a full breakdown of promotion metrics, and a disclosure of every correction made to performance records that quarter. All anonymized, but real. Then something unexpected happened. 3 of our top competitors followed suit, quietly of course, but they started releasing ethics highlights, evaluation frameworks, promotion transparency indexes. And the real surprise? Clients loved it. We saw a 27% increase in inbound interest within the first month. Our reputation flipped from scandal-scarred to industry leader in reform. Major news outlets picked up the story. One headline read, "From Target to Titan, the company that cleaned house and opened its doors." But the part that stuck with me happened late one night after I stayed back reviewing our second quarter benchmarks. A message popped up in my inbox. It was from a junior analyst at another firm, someone I'd never met. "Hi, Mark, I've been following your story. I'm in a similar situation. I'm documenting everything like you did. Just wanted to say thank you. You gave me a playbook." I stared at the screen for a long time. That one message hit me harder than the headlines or the charts or the client growth reports. Because that used to be me, sitting at a desk at midnight, wondering if I was crazy, wondering if it was worth it, wondering if anyone would ever believe me. And now I was someone's proof that you could fight the system, that you could win. That standing your ground wasn't just brave, it could actually change the game. 16 months after the ambush, I stood behind a podium in San Diego, looking out at a packed auditorium. The banner overhead read, "Corporate Integrity and Whistleblower Symposium, National Keynote Speaker, Mark Rios." Me, a guy who once thought he was about to get canned over bogus data edits. I adjusted the mic and spoke the first words I'd written down on the flight in. I was supposed to be fired. Instead, I rewrote the rules. The room was quiet, focused. I talked about blind copies, about performance logs, about the first time I realized people were getting rewarded for cheating a system I thought was merit-based. I told them about Vance, about ClearFrame, about the audit reports, about the lawsuits. But more than anything, I talked about silence. The years I spent swallowing frustration because I thought speaking up would get me blacklisted, not promoted. When I wrapped, I got a standing ovation, and after the talk, a line of people formed at the side of the stage. Some shook my hand, some asked for advice, but most just wanted to say thank you. Since then, I've lost track of how many emails I get each week. Employees from every industry, tech, finance, healthcare, sending spreadsheets, timelines, asking, does this count as retaliation? Or is this enough documentation? They don't ask for favors, they ask for backup. And I give it. Because I remember what it felt like to be on the other side of that table, sitting in a conference room you thought was about career growth, only to find out it was your funeral. I still work at the company. I sit on the board now. Our ethics reports are standard reading across the sector. Other firms have adopted our transparency policies. Some even poached our software. Fine by me. Let them copy what works. The legacy Vance tried to build, backroom deals, favors, manipulation, it's gone, replaced with a system his type can't exploit anymore. I don't think about him much these days, but every once in a while, when someone asks me what kept me sane through all of it, I give them the same answer every time. I wrote it down, because documentation is the quiet armor no one sees, until it's the sword that wins the war. Stand your ground, keep receipts, and never let anyone write your story for you.